All right, and welcome to the first ever Rhode Island postgame show here on Google Hangout. We're going to be doing them this way. We're going to be trying to do more Hangout stuff this season. My name's Joey Zacco. I'm the commissioner, and I'm joined by one familiar face who is not in Legacy League's clothes for the first time ever, Tyler Cruz. Tyler, what's going on, bud?
How we doing? Just chilling, ready to kick this show on the road.
Tyler's in a lazy boy recliner. He's got the hair ready to go. Rhode Island hoodie, URI hoodie. I love it. And first time post game for Jeremy Morrison over there. Jeremy, how's it going, man?
I'm doing fantastic, Joey. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. You're very welcome. So we're going to break down all the week one action. We're going to be doing this live. It'll also be on our YouTube after this in case you miss anything. And let's start with week one of the winter 19 season in Rhode Island. Guys, Boom Shakalaka's back. Couple different faces, a very different Boom Shakalaka team from what we're used to. And they took on a Skyhookers team who returns from the first season of Legacy Leagues here in Rhode Island. Very close game, 59-51. Boom Shakalaka does escape with the win. Jeremy, we'll start with you. What stood out from that game? And this is your first time seeing both those teams, so I'm interested in what you took away.
Well, I really thought going into it, the Skyhookers were going to run away with it because they have a lot more size. They had two guys that were 6'3", 6'4", but the Skyhookers, the Boom Shakalaka, they fell behind early on, but Cole Ferguson really took control. Him and Lucas Martin hit some good threes. Cole Ferguson had a great poster dunk, which I got on Snapchat, and they were just able to control the pace. The big guys on the Skyhookers weren't really doing it for them inside. I thought they should have just kept pounding it down low and getting easy layups. They weren't doing that. And then Lucas Martin hit a couple of really good threes late in the game. So congrats to Boom Shakalaka for maintaining the pace for the most part.
Yeah, for sure. 1-0 is 1-0. Doesn't matter how you get there. Wins are hard to come by, Ty. We know about that.
Yeah.
Cole Ferguson, Lucas Martin, going to be two names I think we talk about a lot. Cruz, you kind of have some of that history background. Your first time seeing the Skyhookers, so that's going to be fun. But as I mentioned, Boom with some different names this season.
Yeah, and Lucas Martin always has had ice in his veins from three, and we've seen it in all-star games and championship games in the playoffs. But I was really shocked to see Boom fall behind early, and I think it's going to be a transition for them without Nate Stitchell. Trevor D'Amico wasn't there last night. And Jeremy, you mentioned the big men, and I think it's in the 4v4 league, there's a lot of running. It's such a fast-paced game that unless you have a lot of depth at the big man position, they get tired easily, and it doesn't really work to your advantage late in the game. And I think that's really why Boom was able to pull ahead of the Skyhookers in the second half and in the second quarter after starting slow. But I do think it's going to be a transition for Boom. It's going to be a different team than we've seen the last couple of years.
For sure, and you can see Tyler Cruz and Brian Heston. They'll be back on the Low Post podcast. They'll be doing it right here on Google Hangout. This week's is going to be tomorrow morning, Friday, 11:30 a.m. You can watch it live, and it'll be up on SoundCloud later in the day. So stay tuned for that tomorrow. The podcast will be back. They'll be breaking down all the games. You can hear more of Tyler then and get some other takes
really want
on the podcast. Yeah, I mean, I don't know who would want to do that. That sounds like torture. Let's move on to the Alaskan Bullworms and the Pizza Rolls. Two new teams. The only other single-digit game from week one, the Alaskan Bullworms do take the win. It was a close game. They started off slow. It was a single-digit first quarter for them, 4 points for the Alaskan Bullworms, and then they were able to come all the way back and take the win. I know you guys were in and out on that game. Some of the big players, Aaron Morelli and Justin Simmons, they did that post-game interview. A podium game for them in their first Legacy Leagues game. 20 points for Morelli, 18 for Justin Simmons. And they were really the keys for the Alaskan Bullworms getting that win. The Pizza Rolls, led by Ben Floyd, 19 points. He had some big dunks, but it was two teams definitely trying to find their rhythm in this league and feel it out in their first Legacy Leagues action. Cruz, I know you had some time to look stuff over. Anything on this game?
And you mentioned the 20-point game from Aaron Morel, and I was just really impressed with how efficient he shot. Usually when you see these high-scoring games, it's because you're playing one-man ball and running through a player, and he's taking 30 shots a game and shooting 20%. But, I mean, he had over 50%, I think, from the field. Yeah, 64.3%, 9 of 14 and no threes. So to score 20 points in this league on no threes is pretty impressive.
For sure, and we're going to see if they can keep that up as those two teams will take on some of the other teams in the league. Two teams we didn't see, Halfway Crooks and Swish Kebabs. They'll make their debut next week. A team that's been around forever, the Werewolves, as we move on here, they take care of Duyer's boys 85-60 in a game that was highly anticipated and talked up, is putting it nicely on the Twitter. Both those teams made this early in week one what we like to see in the legacy leagues with the trash talk, the going back and forth on the Twitter. But it is the Werewolves who have been here, done that, kind of like they were ready to go. I talked to PJ Thomas after the game. They were not ready for the low rims. Let's just put it that way. And that's what happens when new teams take on teams who have been here before. Brian Heston doing Brian Heston things, 25.7 rebounds, leading the way for the Werewolves. Duyer's boys had a couple guys in double figures, John Coteau and Aaron Avant, but Cruz, Dave Campbell, number 3 on the Werewolves, down there for that game. We talk about Brian Heston a lot. We talk about Gino Forti a lot when it comes to the Werewolves. They may have found that other piece in Dave Campbell, who had a great game last night.
Yeah, and they're always talking about how they needed a third scorer to step up. And, I mean, Campbell, 18 points, 8 of 13 from the field, but you really see his effect in Gino and in Brian, because Gino and Brian both shot over 60% from the field in the same game and scored double figures. I don't remember the last time that's ever happened. I mean, no offense to Gino, but every game I remember coming out last year, he was like 4 for 25. And I mean, it just wasn't a good shooting performance. And that's because he had to take so many shots. And now with Campbell there, he can kind of focus on taking only good shots and not have so much pressure on him. And I think when you add a third scorer like that, it shines on all of the other players the same.
For sure. And Jeremy, we'll get to see some of these teams we're talking about for the first time next week, that's for sure. But going to that last game, if I can find this, the defending champs, Jeremy was around for this one. He got his first look at Lob City. Only 5 guys, but it was Vic Cashew Jr., number 29 there, Jeremy, who had 31 points as Lob City won 97-50. And so I do have to fix the stats, but that is Vic, and you will get to know Vic. A very Vic-like performance. 31 points, 12 rebounds, 8 assists, 6 steals. So approaching that triple-double, quadruple-double range is what Vic will do on a weekly basis. Your takeaway from Lob City, again, Boston Blazers, a brand new team. So finding that adjustment and making that adjustment is going to be key for them. But the defending champs, what do you think about them, Jeremy?
Well, right off the bat, they look like they've been playing together for a while. They all knew their own role. And one player that stood out was Jory Coro, the big man, number 5. He had 20 rebounds and 6 blocks. He was really playing the Rudy Gobert role really well. And he was 5 for 15, but he kind of chucked up some late game threes when they were ahead a lot. So he's just puts up efficient shots. And I think without him, their defense just collapses. He really holds down the paint. He can block any shot. And I think he's like the backbone of their defense. And then they have enough guys on offense that can just rack up points. So I think this team's going to be hard to beat for sure.
Yeah, Jeremy, you haven't even seen their best scorer yet, Cody Crawford, who wasn't there last night. But, I mean, he can shoot the 3 better than anybody, I think, in the league. And Joey Coro is – I mean, you'll get to know him more, less from the glass, more for his posterizing ability. I mean, that guy can dunk over anybody. But, I mean, Vic's night, 31 points, 18 was it 18 rebounds? 12 rebounds.
12. Yeah.
That's really what you see from him when there is no big man and he kind of has to play that wing guard. I mean, that wing position. I mean, you had Joey, but Victor was kind of doing a lot of the banging down low. He was doing basically everything. And then Greg Holt, I think, one of the better point guards in the league to this day, and just a deadly combination. And I think that's not even the best game we're going to see from Lob City this year.
For sure. And, you talked about Cody Crawford. That was the key to me, him not being there. And so those are the 4 teams, Cruz. I know you can kind of nod along on this one. We're expecting the Halfway Crooks and the Swish Kebabs to be 2 of those veteran teams competing this season. You can shake your head. I'm on the Halfway Crooks.
No, I'm not in my head.
All right, cool. So we didn't see those 2 teams this week. We'll see them next week. But, guys, from the 8 teams you did see in week 1, we can start with Cruz here. What was your takeaway from the league so far, and what are you maybe looking forward to in week 2?
I think it's going to be a top-heavy league. I think there are a couple teams that aren't going to be able to compete too well, and I think the experienced teams, it's going to show. I mean, it's really going to show, especially at the beginning of the season, which teams have played on the 8.5-foot rim before, which teams have played together before, and which teams are used to the league and the style of play. And, I mean, my prediction already for the championship is Lob City, but I do think that the experienced teams are going to be much better than the unexperienced teams. Unlike when we had Prestige Worldwide, who was very good in their first year, and the Bucket Chasers were competitive last year. I don't think we're going to see that often this year.
All right, Jeremy, your takeaway from week one, sorry.
Yeah, I definitely think that the inexperienced teams, it's going to be a learning curve. There's a lot of sloppiness going on. They didn't really take advantage of the spacing with the 4 and 4. They can slow it down and spread it out and maybe run a couple pick and rolls. But I see that sloppiness going away early on in the next few weeks. But I agree. It looks like Lob City really knows what they're doing. And looks like, as I've said, that they're playing together well. So I agree with what he said about it being a top-heavy league.
For sure. In Lob City, definitely when you're the defending champs, you are the favorite until someone proves otherwise, right? And so that's definitely what we're looking forward to in this season. That'll put a wrap on the post-game show. Thank you very much, guys. We have top plays, power rankings, our 2-minute drill. Cruz is going to take you around the league with highlights.
I can't wait for that. I think that's going to be really cool.
It's going to be awesome. I'm excited to see what Cruz has up his sleeve for that one. And we also have our crossover highlight as well as the podcast, as I mentioned, live tomorrow morning, 11:30, and it'll be on SoundCloud later in the day. For Tyler Cruz, Jeremy Morrison, I'm Joey Zacco. This was the Week 1 Rhode Island postgame show. We'll see you for Week 2 starting at 8 p.m. Wednesday, December 12th here. Well, we're not at the Johnston Rec Center. I'm defaulting to my usual sign-off, but we will see you at the Johnston Rec Center next Wednesday for Week 2 of the Winter 19 season in Rhode Island.
Thanks, Joey.